Hello everyone, Jeff here. So this is the Ocho. The Ocho as in my 8th Aquarium. I just set this up last week. It's a 10-gallon tank that I bought at the most recent $1 per gallon sale at Petco. And I recently received another package from Drs. Foster & Smith. I did an unboxing video of that, and that's where I got the stand, the sponge filter, the Tetra Whisper air pump here, this lid. So all those were among my most recent Drs. Foster & Smith order. And inside there's a submersible LED light that I bought from eBay. And so this Ocho, my 8th tank here, I set this up because I want it to be a quarantine tank. I want to have a permanent quarantine tank. I've actually had several other tanks that started out as quarantine tanks, and they ended up being regular community tanks or just kept fish in them. Like my 10-gallon Guppy Endler hybrid tank, that was my first quarantine tank. Even my 3-gallon cylinder tank that I had my mosquito fish in served as my banishment tank after that. My 5.5-gallon where I had camellinus worms. My 10-gallon mutt guppy tank, that was a quarantine tank. So now, after all those, I don't have a quarantine tank. So I already have some part of the plan that I was going to do with this tank has already changed, because I have some plants floating in here. I just got these the day after I set up this tank. I was kind of thinking I might, I'd put some plants in here, but I was thinking maybe I'd have like one species of plant. But I was able to attend a NAPE meeting last week, the day after I set up this tank. NAPE, that stands for Nevada Aquatic Plant Enthusiasts. And some of the guys that attend share clippings of their plants. So I was able to come home with these. This is water sprite. I don't already have that. And that's probably what I'm going to just leave in here. Let that grow in here as much as it can grow with this, little LED light that doesn't provide a lot of light. And this is rotala rotundifolia. I don't already have that. I'm probably going to move this to my 30-gallon planted live bear community tank and my Guppy Endler hybrid tank. And this is rotala green. So since I set this up and put these plants in here, I did do like 1 squirt of Aquarium Co-op Easy Green fertilizer, and maybe I can already tell that there's a difference with the areas of the plants that are close to the light and that which is not really getting light, because the light is kind of angled downward into the tank, so like back here is not really getting any light. As you can see, it's kind of like browning there, and maybe it looks healthier in front. You can see some roots coming down because they're floating. But yeah, I tossed one bladder snail in here, so it looks like there's bladder snail turds, all from one little bladder snail. That's what I put in here anyway. I did notice there was another type of snail that came as a hitchhiker on these plants, like one of those like small pest snails, not like a ram's horn snail, but the kind that have like a ram's horn shaped snail that's like flat and sideways, one of those smaller ones, whatever those are called. I remember when I first noticed one of those in my 3.5 gallon tank, I thought it might be a ram's horn snail, but there is a difference there. Well, anyway, one thing that I'm trying to do here to keep this a quarantine tank that's different than I did with my other quarantine tanks, and it's kind of funny. I'm just starting to watch. There was a debate between Raleigh and Jay. Raleigh, Fish Keeping Jamaica, and Jay, Aquafunk with Angel Freak. And they had a back and forth several videos on debating having substrate versus not without substrate, bare bottom. And for me, any of my community tanks or anything like that is going to have substrate. You know, the two main reasons is one, it looks natural, like a natural fish environment, and two, for plants, you know, so plants can root in it. And I haven't seen what, you know, they're going through the pros and cons of having substrate or not, and I haven't watched all the way through. But I'm guessing the one reason they might have left out is one reason as a pro to not have substrate that I'm trying to do myself is I didn't put substrate in this tank because I want to keep it as a quarantine tank. I want it to stay as its purpose. Like if I put substrate in here like I do with my other quarantine tanks, I would likely end up converting it, just keeping it as or just using it as a regular tank and keeping fish in it. So I want to have a quarantine tank so that if I ever have, you know, go to one of my local fish stores or see like a fish that I have to have, like I want to have one ready for an impulse purchase so that I can quarantine it. And I want to have it in case I need to move fish out of any of my tanks into this. And yet another reason for bare bottom is one that they could have possibly mentioned. I don't know if they have yet, but a pro for having a bare bottom is because I did recently notice camellanus worms in one of my tanks, and you know I treated it with levamisole, but I am still concerned that the camellanus worms could come back because they would have, you know, once the levamisole, you know, has them poop out the worms, but there could be eggs, and after doing so, you'd have to do a thorough gravel vac. But still, I don't know if I saw the worms or eggs or whatever, and you know, they could return because of that. But I think with a bare bottom, if I moved fish into here and treated them with levamisole in this tank, once they pooped out any camellanus worms, I'd be able to, you know, see them obviously on the bare bottom. So that would, you know, give me a better chance to get rid of camellanus worms. Yeah, so right now I haven't, you know, this is my quarantine tank. I'm gonna let it cycle. I haven't done any water testing yet. I did just put a little bit of rapashi in here for the snail. So when I did, it was like down here, but the last few days it's just hanging out somewhere up in the water sprite or in the plants. And I have this sponge filter came with 2 sponges, so I have one of the sponges in my 30-gallon. So if that can, you know, get itself seeded with beneficial bacteria, and then I'll, you know, leave that in there for a couple weeks, and I'll switch it out in here. And then I'm thinking I might put a fish in here to kind of get the cycle going along. I mean, I have so many fish with live bearers. I could put a guppy or platy or something like that in here. And I'm also kind of thinking of, even though this is going, you know, the purpose is to be a quarantine tank too, I'll still keep like maybe 1 resident fish in here just to, like, between quarantines, like one, like every time I put new fish in here, I'll put the quarantine meds in, ICX, erythromycin, and General Cure. Those are the recommended trio of medications. But so I might, every time I quarantine new fish, I might keep a resident fish in here that'll just get blasted with meds every time, but, you know, kind of serve as a guinea pig fish. I was kind of thinking that I might keep a molly in here as a resident fish. As much as I love live bearers, I've never kept mollies. I guess part of the reason for that is between mollies, platies, and guppies, I just like platies and guppies that much more. But yeah, I think I might get a molly in here. Perhaps just leave it as a resident, and then, because I do, as far as I know, mollies, and I've been told mollies are good at eating algae. So one idea that I have is maybe, you know, using this as being a quarantine tank. I can also, if I just keep a molly in here as a resident, I can take plants out of other tanks that have algae on them and put them in here and let the molly eat the algae, and then once plants are cleaned up, then I can move them back into the other tank, so I can serve that purpose as well. So I might do that. And yeah.